Lesson 2, the early history of analytics. Analytics has had a long history with roots in some of the earliest map making that we know of from humans on this planet. And it has fanned into statistics, medicine, politics, and many other fields. Understanding that historical evolution is important for us to know, important for us as we start to project where this field is going in the next 5, 10, 50 years. 5 important things that we will cover in this lesson. One is that mankind's experience with data is long and robust. It is evolving from these rudimentary map-making skills that we'll see into the flourishing art science practice that it is today. Second is that data analytics has played a major role in statistics, medicine, politics, and many other fields, as it still does continue today. Data analytics' early history can best be described through 8 specific epochs, each with significant events that trace the growth of the data analytics practice. Each epoch features a distinct inflection point or series of points that moved the practice forward and ushered in a new epoch. And then finally, data analytics' early history ended with the creation of digital data, which introduces the rise of contemporary analytics. The 8 epochs of the early history of data analytics look like this. They spread out, literally going back 7,000 years into human history. And as I've said, each one contains some inflection points that sort of move us along. We'll discuss each of those now quickly. The first period, the first epoch, is what we call early maps and diagrams. This is pre-1600, and you see certainly the rudimentary beginnings of map making, but this really does quickly turn into a very artistic expression as we start to, as a species, work with color, work with different diagram and design inputs that really move us from, again, the rudimentary to the quite exquisite quite quickly. The second epoch is in the 1600s. This is what we call measurement and theory period. Here we start to see the use of tools to collect data. We start to see models constructed, and some really, really interesting data visualizations come out of this time. We move into the third epoch, which is what we'll call new graphic forms. Here we start to experiment a lot more with color, experiment a lot more with new visuals that are taking kind of theoretical approaches to data and producing some very interesting outputs. It really does set us up for the next epoch, which we'll call the beginnings of modern graphics. This is the period where the bar chart is introduced, the pie chart is introduced, certainly very important visualizations that we still use today. That then sets us up for the fifth epoch, which we'll call the golden age of data analytics. There were some tremendously important visuals constructed at this time, from John Snow's use of a dot map to examine cholera and really change the way that we as humans think about disease epidemiology and how that is transferred, how diseases are transferred, into what could be the most beautiful and important data visualization of all time, which is Charles Joseph Menard's story of Napoleon's triumphant march from Paris to Moscow and back again. So much packed into this visual. The temperature, time, the number of soldiers that he left with, the number of soldiers that he returned home with, all done really elegantly and beautifully. We do, in this period, start to get a little bit over our skis, and visuals start to take on tremendous complexity, probably simply because we could create that kind of complexity. That complexity really obscures the meaning. It becomes harder to understand what the insights or what the stories are of the visuals. That triggers an inevitable backlash into the next epoch, which we'll call the modern dark ages of analytics. This is a time when more standardization, more formality was introduced. Icons and iconography representing certain data points were expected to be used and standardized. This really does throttle a lot of the creativity that we had seen up until this point in exchange for more exactness and accuracy. But there are some things that come out of this period that are very important. One is Henry Beck's beautiful and very well-known map of the London Underground, which traces the stations and in a very important way will tell a rider the information they need to know without exacting accuracy. If you laid this map over London, you wouldn't be able to exactly drill down from where one of the stations are located and find that station. It was more of a theoretical approach, but really demonstrates how a theoretical visual can be used to great effect and great import and impact. Also, the computer is invented in this period of time. The Mark I at Harvard, which was the size of a living room and yet had less capability than we carry around every day in our pockets and our cell phones. But this did change the way that we as data designers could construct visuals and change the way that we as analysts could do analysis on data. This moves us into the seventh epoch, which is this rebirth of data analytics on the power of that computer and the ability for us to use much more data. We see new visual forms being constructed. We see new analysis being produced, all again owing to some of the advancements that came in the previous epoch. The final epoch is something that we call the high definition data analytics period. A number of things came out of this period that really would advance the science very, very much and have new visuals created powerfully and democratize data like never before. This period ends as we start to move into modern analytics with the advent of digital data, and specifically the event that really did turn the page is AT&T buying the first banner ad. And we'll talk more about that in the next lesson as we move into the more contemporary history. Those are the 8 epochs, each of them again having tremendous impact and inflection points, ushering this practice forward and advancing data analytics.